G'day folks, how you going?
Just on your contribution to the House yesterday after Jerry Brownlee's ruling, could you run us through some ideas that you might have for the Standing Orders Committee in terms of ways that MPs who act disorderly could be disciplined by the House?
I think Te Pāti Māori's behaviour has presented a very specific challenge. It is people who are actually quite proud to undermine the mana of Parliament. You know, people who say you have to follow tikanga aren't prepared to follow it here. In fact, they think their supporters will back them more if they behave dishonourably within the House, because their objective is to discredit the Parliament, and they openly say they'd like to set up another Parliament. So the Parliament needs a way, I think, of disciplining people who are directly trying to undermine the Parliament.
Yeah.
How you could do that, more direct, longer penalties, suppressing their ability to share that kind of information or impression, because for a long time Parliament's worked on the basis that people are really proud to be a part of it and feel ashamed to undermine its procedures. We don't really have rules to take on people who are proud of undermining Parliament.
Do you think some MPs are taking actions specifically to get attention on social media?
Well, I think there's an element of that, but ultimately, Parliament's objective has to be to uphold the ability of New Zealanders to send someone to speak for them and have an ordered, rational debate about what's the best way forward for the country. If you've got people who don't have that goal, then you need other rules to get them to follow it.
Yeah, because Te Pāti Māori have said that one of the purposes of the Haka last week was to get attention internationally. So would some of the change of rules that you're looking at try to address that sort of issue?
Yeah, because normally, if you try and undermine the rules of Parliament, you actually get bad publicity and bad press for doing it. You've got people who've created a political position where it's actually profitable for them, politically perhaps, in the short term, to undermine the Parliament, and you need a different set of rules to deal with that.
Could I just put another example to you? So the Haka took 1 minute and 10 seconds of Parliament's time. You arguing with the Speaker over your logo on your lapel took 2 minutes 20. Do you think that was deserved of
I'm
more
so,
of
so
a
sorry. Could we get the Prime Minister?
Well,
in here and
first
you
of
can
all,
give us
I would answer your question, but if you want me to come over here, I can. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. So. All right. So, anyone want to ask any more questions?
Jenna, did she want to?
Don't know.
I just wanted to go back to 2005 when Labor, under a coalition agreement with NZ First, decided to vote up a treaties principles deletion bill, only to vote it down the second reading. It's quite a similar scenario here, although it's a slightly different bill. What do you make of that, given the discourse from Labor now?
Well, first of all, I think there's always been different details in coalition agreements. I mean, these bills are very different. I don't think there's any point in trying to say that there are no treaty principles. The current government's objective is to review the inclusion of principles in certain legislation, but even that exempts 5 bills where we're not changing, let alone taking up the treaty principles, for example, the Treaty of Waitangi Bill. So they're always going to exist. My view is it's important to work out what they actually mean.
Can I just put that same scenario to you before? So the protest that you staged over wearing your lapel pins took up twice as much time as the Haka that Hana did. What's the difference? And should you face? Should you have faced Haka?
Okay, this is probably the worst question you've ever asked, which is a record, even for you. It's very simple. The offence here is getting in people's faces, preventing people from having a say, a dissent from orderly debate where people put their views on an even and fair playing field, to somebody suddenly having to have someone in their face deliberately trying to stop them having their say, stopping a vote from taking place. I mean, the fact you think that is comparable, I don't really know where to go with that. But let me make this point. Trevor Mallard ruled on the matter in 2019, I think it was, or 2020. You could equally ask why the Speaker chose to arbitrarily change that rule. And yes, I do think that people have the right to question rulings by the Speaker. Getting out of your seat, obstructing people, preventing a vote from taking place. All of that is completely outside the orderly rules of Parliament. I just
from other
don't.
people's perspective, Mr. Seymour, particularly the speakers at the time, he felt that you were disorderly in your conduct by questioning a ruling that he had made, and what the Māori Party did in technicality is again just questioning a standing order of
Well, if you seriously think that getting up out of your seat, trying to intimidate people, trying to prevent a vote from taking place is the same as wearing a pin, then I guess people can judge for themselves if they think that's a serious comparison.
But was it a good use of Parliament's time?
Yeah.
Lapel gate?
Well, I disagree. I think the Speaker should have kept the ruling that had stood for the previous 5 years, but hey, there you go.
So was it a good use of Parliament's time, the time taken to go back and forth on the lapel issue?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes you've got to work through what the rules are. If you can do that in an orderly and respectful way, then that's a lot better than getting out of your seat trying to intimidate people.
You're upset with the fact that the Haka upset the undertaking of Parliament, right? So the vote wasn't able to take place. In the situation with the lapel pins, one of your ministers was unable to answer questions from the opposition because you stood in protest at something you disagreed with.
Yeah, because the Speaker chose to make a rule that was different from any other rule. The idea that somehow an orderly debate about a rule being changed by a Speaker arbitrarily, I have to say, is equivalent.
The Speaker thought it was disorderly.
Well, I think people can see for themselves. I mean, if we're actually seriously at the stage where wearing a pin is equivalent to getting out of your seat and getting in someone's face, then I think that tells us everything we need to know.
So people can protest, but they have to protest a certain way, is what you're saying?
In a way that respects free speech, the ability to have your say without being, I guess, intimidated, shouted down or prevented from actually having your say. That's what's important, is that people's voices should be respected. I mean, I'm just astonished. I think people are going to seriously ask what the New Zealand media is up to when they think wearing a pin is equivalent to that brouhaha that they fomented yesterday.
But the Haka is a way for Māori to have their free speech.
Well, it's very simple.
Do you not think the rules should allow for Haka in situations such as that, rather than
So now the argument. Let's get this clear. The argument is that
another point.
No, I'm answering it by taking it to the implications of what you're saying. The idea that it's okay to get out of your seat, get in people's faces, try and intimidate them. I mean, do you disagree it was wrong for Julianne Genter to do it? Because the House censured her for doing that. The idea that you can speak freely on behalf of the people who elected you without fear or favour, without being intimidated, without anything physical coming into it, that is crucial to our democracy. But hey, if you think wearing a pin is equivalent to that, then good luck to you. I mean, seriously?
I'm the one who raised the pin. I'm asking about the Haka.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think we can be any clearer.
Were you one of the ones who vetoed her attempt to get a speaking slot?
That's right, because the people of New Zealand voted in proportion to be represented, and for each New Zealander to have an equal right to speak. Once you say, oh, some people get a different right to speak based on their ancestry, which was Te Pāti Māori's argument, you no longer have one person, one vote. So again, the idea of drawing an equivalency beyond that just shows a total misunderstanding and frankly an ignorance of how Parliament actually works.
If the Haka had been done during one of Te Pāti Māori's speaking slots, and without them getting up in your face, would you have been okay with it?
Well, let's see. If they stayed in their seat and chose to use their speaking time for that purpose, then sure, everyone gets an equal amount of time, an equal say, an equal representation, and the public can judge based on what they say. That would be fine. But unfortunately, they chose to get out of their seat. They're doing it to try and draw people's attention, and they're doing it in a way that actually makes it hard for other people to express their views on an equal basis. And that's all I'm campaigning for, is equal rights. You know, it's a pretty simple concept. Our society's based on it, our democracy's based on it. And the idea that you think Te Pāti Māori should get extra seats or extra speeches because of who their ancestors were, I'm sorry, that's just nuts.
Did you feel intimidated last week?
Well, I didn't, but it's pretty clear what the intention of a Haka is. I mean, that's how it evolved, that's what it's there for.
So you didn't, so you're just raising it in case others felt intimidated, like other people in your caucus?
No, I'm raising it because any person should be able to go along and speak and not feel that they have to stand up for themselves physically to get their point across.
But no one felt intimidated?
Well, I'm not saying whether they did or not. The point is that under the standing orders of Parliament, a breach of privilege is something that corrupts or impedes or has a tendency to impede people's ability to carry out their duties. Now, the idea that just because nobody says they're intimidated or no one was intimidated, that it's okay to behave badly. I mean, honestly, the standards you guys are applying here are just astonishing.
Your chest is blowing.
Between Waiata
I know.
What is the difference between
This one will get good ratings. Yep.
Sorry. What's the difference between Waiata and Haka, and how do we kind of decide what's culturally okay and what isn't?
Well, I mean, first of all, the simple answer is a Waiata is a song and a Haka is a war dance. A song involves standing and making noises with your mouth. A war dance usually involves standing, making noises with your mouth, and gesticulating in a way that's usually designed to intimidate opponents traditionally before a battle. So I'd hope that's a reasonable discussion. How do we decide? Well, the question is, how does Parliament decide according to its rules and its membership and its traditions? Well, it's pretty straightforward. People should be able to speak freely on behalf of the people that elected them. And when you take that right away, you're actually taking away the right of the people that elected them.
But I mean, is Pāti Māori speaking for their people in the way that their people understand?
Well, the question is, do we have equal rights here? Do all people have an equal ability to express themselves? The way they behave takes away from other people's rights to self-expression. The way I conduct myself doesn't do that. It's respectful of all. So none of this is too difficult, right? We just need to all get along, respect other people's dignity and rights, not take away from anyone else when we do it for ourselves. That's a way that the world can work. When some people think they're so important because of their ancestry that they get to have a better show, because they're somehow special because of their birth, that's when the society doesn't work out, equal rights.
What did you mean when you said this one will get good ratings?
Well, it's pretty simple. Because of some of the inanity of some of the questions that I'm exposed to, I've started putting them on YouTube, and I got to say, a lot of people find it's compelling viewing. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.